Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedom, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back. From time to time, you probably flip through the channels and happen to cross over and find that you flipped on to a program called Intervention. Intervention has to do with families that are trying to get involved with individuals who basically have gotten involved with drugs, alcohol, to the point where imminent danger was about to happen. And so the whole theme of intervention is how people get involved with their family members or their friends to stop something bad from happening. Today's show is about an intervention that went all wrong. And I would like to introduce to you my first guest, Dot Knightley. Dot, welcome to the show.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Great. This is Speak Up, so that's what the whole show's about. It's about speaking up and about your situation, and I want to get a little background, get our viewers to understand what's kind of going on. Tell us about your website that you have and the organization that you're involved with.
I have a grandparents blog. It's called Unhappy Grammy Grandparents Blog. I started writing it after my grandchildren were taken from my daughters. It was the only way for me to be able to get through the nightmare that was happening and to let other people know what was going on, that they have to be aware that this is really happening to so many people. And we want people to listen. We've gotten in touch with other people and tried to help them. Just trying to get through the system and get the kids back where they belong.
There's a key word. You said the system.
Yes.
Let's talk about the system. And let's get our viewers a little background first. What happened? Where does this story begin with Dot Knightley?
My youngest daughter was, the day she found out she was pregnant, she went into a pregnant women's methadone program. She was a recovering addict. She had a baby girl. They said there was nothing wrong with the baby at the hospital when she was born. She wasn't withdrawing. My daughter had been given a morphine IV in labor, but we had no idea why she was given the morphine IV. She was in labor 19 hours, and the baby was born healthy. The hospital staff told my daughter she'd be taking the baby home with her 2 days after she was born. The paperwork was all signed. The pregnant women's methadone counselor went to the social worker at the hospital and told her the baby was withdrawing to put her in NICU. They put her in NICU at 10 o'clock that night, the night before she was to be discharged.
What is NICU?
NICU is for babies that are born early. They're born small. They're withdrawing from drugs or alcohol, or they might have other things wrong with them where they need special care.
Were you there on site when the babies were born? And
I helped deliver the baby.
Okay. All right. So
my granddaughter, they said she was fine. They ended up moving her into NICU that night. Mm-hmm. The next day, my daughter and the baby's paternal aunt went in to see the baby, and the NICU nurse handed my daughter the wrong baby. The baby was a crack baby.
Let me just stop you right there. They
Okay.
handed you the wrong baby. usually it seems to be customary now that I think you have these secure systems where secure care products where they put down that little band on the child,
Yep.
and that way, as soon as the baby comes
Right.
out, don't they just put that on them?
Yes, they do, but for some reason there were no bracelets on this baby and no security alarm. So my daughter flipped out. She said, "This isn't my baby. I want my baby." They said, "No, you're hallucinating. This is your baby."
Okay. And you were there. You recognized.
No, I wasn't there. The paternal aunt was. In fact, she signed, she had a notarized affidavit done to show that this is exactly what happened. After my daughter argued with the nurse. She wanted her own baby. And then she got mad. She said, "I want my baby transferred to St. Joe's Hospital." And the nurse said, "There's no way. If you even try to transfer her, you'll be arrested."
Oh, why would they say something like that?
I have no idea. They clearly didn't like my daughter. They
Okay.
didn't like her. They were very rude to her the whole time she went there for methadone.
Okay.
So the nurse finally went back into where the baby's cribs were, and she brought our granddaughter out. And my daughter said she has no bracelets or security alarm on either. And the nurse spoke up, and she told her the reason was because when they take the babies to another floor, they take the bracelets off. They don't take the bracelets off a baby. All they have to do is shut the security alarm off.
Right.
So right after that happened, the social worker called DCYF and reported my daughter to DCYF for abuse and neglect.
Okay.
So that was where it began.
I was going to ask you, why did DCYF get involved with your family? But it was because of the...
That was why,
Because
yes.
of the social worker.
Yes.
All right.
DCYF came in. They never did an investigation. We didn't know why at the time the baby was given morphine in labor.
Could it be because they confused the babies at one point?
No, we found out later on. We got the records 6 months after the baby was taken. The hospital and the health center kept telling us they couldn't find the records, they were missing. So when we got them 6 months later, it showed they had given her a morphine IV because the baby was placenta previa, and the baby should have been born by cesarean section, not natural.
Okay. That leads a question. Okay, so now DCYF is involved. The baby's born. The social worker said that there was some type of abuse going on. The baby was just born.
Right. That's exactly right. That's what she said. She told DCYF that there were drugs in the baby's system.
Okay.
Yet there were toxicology reports done on the baby when she was born, and they weren't back yet. They came back 4 days after she reported my daughter to DCYF.
Okay. Did DCYF look at the toxicology reports?
Evidently not.
Okay, so they went on basically on hearsay.
Hearsay.
All right, so what did they do?
They filed a petition for my daughter to go to court for a preliminary hearing. Well, there was something, I have to back up to this. This
Okay.
is another part. My older daughter and her 2 kids were staying with us temporarily. Somebody called in, well, I know exactly who called in, a false report against my oldest daughter because she wanted her to take her shoplifting, and my daughter said no, she wasn't taking her. So the report was called in against my daughter's estranged husband, who didn't live with us, didn't come to visit the kids, but the report was called in. We took the kids immediately to the hospital and had them checked over. They said there was nothing wrong, no abuse. So what happened was Tracy Rookie, the caseworker, said that she was going to have Tracy Gubbins sign off on the report, that the case was unfounded, it was closed. Well, 2 weeks later, my daughter, the younger daughter with the baby, got a paperwork in the police department brought it, paperwork they were filed for custody of the baby, DCYF did. So she had to be to court on September 26th.
Okay. In my mind, I'm thinking, I still have in the back of my mind this toxicology report.
Right.
A caseworker says to DCYF, the baby has drugs in its system and it's withdrawing. There's a toxicology exam was created.
Right.
Where is that floating around while DCYF is taking charge here?
I have no idea.
Okay, when did you get that?
6 months after she was taken. And at that point in time, we tried bringing the evidence in to court. Judge Leary denied it. Judge Bamberger told my daughter that it was too late. It didn't matter if her daughter was taken illegally. It was too late. A de novo appeal wasn't filed.
Oh, all right, I need to ask this question. Did your daughter give her child up for adoption?
No.
And still, there was a toxicology report which would have proved either there was neglect or no neglect. I mean, that's all this is based upon, this toxicology report.
Right.
Is that correct? And the observance
Right.
of a social worker.
Right.
All right. And so eventually you got the toxicology report.
Yeah, 6 months later, and the court wouldn't look at it. They wouldn't let us admit any of it into evidence.
What did the toxicology report say?
There was morphine in the baby, the morphine that was given to my daughter in labor. I went to St. Joe's Hospital. I talked to several doctors and nurses there, and they all told me that the morphine spills right into the baby.
All right, so the morphine was given to the mother.
In labor, yes.
In labor. And that the child got into its system, so there's no other drugs that were involved?
No, when she ended up going to court for the baby, the preliminary hearing, outside of the courtroom, the DCYF lawyer and Melissa Dean, she was the assessment worker, and the lawyer, Kate McClure, was standing there. And I said to them, I said, well, if they take the baby away from my daughter, can I take her home? And Kate McClure said to me, there's no way you're taking that baby home with sexual molestation going on in your house. And I said, there is no sexual molestation going on in my house. And she said, it will be proven in court. I said, no, it won't be, because it never happened. Well, at the time, we didn't even know who the report was filed against. We didn't know it was filed against my daughter's husband, and we didn't know that they were saying it happened in our house. And I just recently came across the false report that doesn't say where it happened.
All right, I'm still stuck on the baby just being born.
Right.
And taken away from you.
Right.
Or taken away from your daughter. The courts intervened via a caseworker, DCYF.
Right.
They had not looked at the toxicology report. The morphine was administered by the hospital.
Right.
The baby's taken away and sent away for adoption.
Right.
And not with your daughter's consent.
Right.
And not without due process.
Right, there was no due process.
Let me ask you, isn't there a federal mandate or statute that says that the grandparents or the next of kin
Yes.
have to be considered?
Yeah, 42 U.S.C. says that family members, relatives, grandparents have to be considered before placement of a child in foster care, and it didn't happen.
Did you ask for an injunction or some type of...
I filed to intervene. I was denied. I filed for custody.
Denied?
I was denied.
For what reason?
They just said I had no standing. That's all I've ever heard is I have no standing as a grandparent. But I do have standing.
So have you seen your granddaughter since?
No. No. It's been 6.5 years.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. So that's how you got involved with as a family rights activist at this point.
Yes.
Now, you've come before the redress of grievances here in Concord.
Yes, I have. They're awesome.
Yeah, they are.
They are helping us. They are.
Well, that's the whole point of the
Yeah.
of the program is to or of the committee is to bring to light areas where people seem to have fallen through the cracks.
Right.
And who brought your case before the committee?
Pete Silva.
Representative Pete Silver.
Yes.
Okay, he's from Nashua.
Yes.
Are you from Nashua?
Yes.
Okay. Where does everything stand at this point? Now, you also have another daughter.
Yes.
Was there another incident where a child was taken away, or?
Yes. She went to the same hospital to see a friend with her daughter. When she got to the hospital, she was accused of being intoxicated.
Okay.
And the police were at the hospital, and the guard called the police over. They arrested my daughter for being intoxicated and called me to go and pick up her and her son. Well, the police told me I was picking her up also, but, you know, that didn't happen. So I went there, and her records were also missing. She was rushed back to the hospital that night. They couldn't wake her up in the jail cell.
Okay.
And they did blood tests on her,
there
which showed
was a
no
problem.
alcohol.
There was no alcohol.
There was no alcohol in her.
Okay, what was wrong?
What was wrong is she was on medication. She was on psychiatric medication, and she was on it through the day. And one of the medications she was on, you slur your words, Klonopins, worst pills there are. You seem like you're drunk on Klonopins.
Couldn't the officer tell that there was no alcohol in her breath?
Nope, he said she was drinking. So they arrested her for belligerent behavior, and then they changed it to child endangerment. And then her records were missing from the same hospital for almost 6 months. Quite a coincidence, right? When we finally got hers and we saw there was no alcohol in her system, we asked her lawyer to file a motion to bring in the new evidence and to have her case dismissed. And she was denied by Judge LaFrancois. Mm-hmm. And then my daughter's criminal charges of child endangerment were dropped in criminal court because it was proven she wasn't intoxicated. This happens to so many people. The criminal charges get dropped in criminal court, but then you go to family court and you don't get your kids back. And the caseworker and CASA both vowed my daughter would never get her kids back.
Do you have that in writing? Or
yes, I do. Yes, I do have it in writing.
On what grounds?
They just didn't want her to have the kids back.
Now, did your daughters ever bring evidence to the courts exonerating their actions?
Yes, and they wouldn't admit the evidence. My younger daughter's lawyer, we asked him to bring in the evidence because we didn't even know he didn't have it. We went to his office and we asked him to look at her file. He wouldn't let her look at the file. We asked for copies. He said the court didn't pay him enough, that he only makes $60 an hour and 12 of it goes to him. The rest goes to his office. He couldn't afford to make copies. He said he had more important cases than hers. We didn't know for the longest time that nobody had my daughter's prenatal records or the other records with the morphine. What happened was my youngest daughter gained 90 pounds in 1 month, the month of January, after her daughter had been born. Well, come to find out, she had a brain hemorrhage in labor from having to push the baby when the baby should have been born by C-section. And her new doctor, the endocrinologist, wanted the records. And then when he finally got them, I was able to get them. So that was in February of 2006. So that's how we found out. And I went to the lawyer's office, and he wasn't there. His secretary let me go through the files, and there were no prenatal records. And when I went through the papers further, I saw that Judge Leary never court-ordered the prenatal medical records.
So he acted without the knowledge of
anything that was wrong with my daughter throughout her pregnancy. She was really sick the whole pregnancy.
What was he going on?
I don't think they read the files. They couldn't read the files. This wouldn't have happened if they read the files.
So now, were her children taken from her as well?
Yes.
Based upon whose orders?
Darren Tucker didn't want the kids placed with me. I think it was Judge Kinghorn was the one who placed them in my house to begin with. And then we went to court, and Judge Leary said it was fine as long as my younger daughter didn't babysit because she had an open case. And then my younger daughter was arrested for charges that she gave her boyfriend a ride, and that was after they had taken custody of the baby. Now, they took custody of the baby in the hospital on September 26th. Mm-hmm. Yet they let her be around my daughter for another whole week. So if she was in such imminent danger, why did they let my daughter still take care of that baby?
Well, I'm confused why they didn't at least consider you.
Because
as an
when
alternative.
she went to court, the DCYF lawyer, Kate McClure, told Judge Leary that there was sexual molestation going on at my house.
All right. Was anybody arrested for the sexual molestation?
No.
Okay.
No
there's
investigation.
Okay. That's one of the things that really troubles me. If there's an accusation and somebody's actually sexually molesting somebody,
Right.
then number one, prove it.
Right.
And number two, if it's true,
Yep.
why are they still out?
Right.
They need to. They need to be put away for the rest of their life, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But if there is no evidence,
Right. We were slandered just so we couldn't have my granddaughter.
now is that in their records? Has DCYF given you the records of
They
your
won't
case?
give us the CD.
Why?
They just keep saying we can't have it. We can't have it.
Based upon what?
No reason.
So,
No reason.
in other words, what you're saying is that they've taken your grandchild,
Right.
they've slandered you,
And they're hiding their dirty little secret.
and they've not proven their case.
Right.
And who are they accountable to?
No one. They're accountable to no one.
They have to be accountable to some agency.
Tell me where, because the federal government still keeps giving them Title IV money. And they're way below the 95 percentile.
Okay, what's Title IV money?
Title IV funding is what they get when they take a child from a family and place the child in foster care.
Where does that money come from?
The federal government.
And so when a child is taken from a home,
Right.
and DCYF gets involved,
They get their reward of incentive money for every child they take. And then they get more money for every child they place for adoption. Placing the child with relatives, they don't get that money.
now, how can somebody research that?
You can look up Title IV funding. You can look up the Adoption Promotion Act.
All right, so a child is taken from you, you've been slandered, they've not proven their case, they've
No.
not shown you. A judge is basically acting without,
He's acting on hearsay,
on
period.
hearsay. And have you seen any of the evidence at all that was brought before the judge? Are you able to at least, or was your daughter able to at least look at some of the accusations that were brought before her?
I have everything.
Okay.
I have everything.
All right. And nothing,
Except that one CD, which they won't let us have, because it proves the DCYF lawyer perjured herself.
and did you bring that before the judge?
Yes.
And what did the judge
Well,
say?
I never get to go in there.
Right.
You know, I kept filing motions. I was never allowed in. There's open courts in Grafton and Rockingham County. It's a pilot project. I don't know if they really let the people in there, but I don't know why there aren't open courts here, because then they would be held accountable.
Why, on the second child, weren't you allowed to, you're the next of kin.
Right.
Why weren't you allowed?
Because my daughter, we bailed my daughter out of jail because we got a letter in the mail from the doctor's office stating that her cortisol level was really low, and that if she didn't get medical care right away, she would go into a coma and die. So we bailed her out.
Your daughter?
My daughter, the younger daughter with the baby.
Wouldn't where she was incarcerated, didn't they know this?
No, they didn't care. It was Valley Street. They don't do anything for anybody.
Okay.
You know?
I'm sure some of the viewers are going to say, well, are your daughters criminals?
No, not now. They're not.
But that really is irrelevant when it comes
Right,
to you.
it is irrelevant.
When it comes to you as a grandparent, having the next rights to the
Right.
children to raise that children.
Yeah. Well, you know my brother, Jay.
Jay,
Claire.
on Facebook.
You know him. He knows you other than that. He called DCYF before they took my granddaughter.
Jay Clay, I know I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Other than that, you know him well. He
I
knows
do?
you really well, yes.
Okay.
He called DCYF, and he talked to
Right.
Tracy Gubbins.
Okay.
And he said he wanted to take my granddaughter if they weren't going to let us. She said, relative placement is not an option. The baby's going into foster care. Period.
All right, now foster care is supposed to be temporary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's supposed to be, but not in Nashua, it's not.
What happened there?
What happened in foster care? Well, they placed my granddaughter in the home of people who had just moved here from Massachusetts. And there was a residence requirements that they were supposed to follow. And, of course, DCYF must have gotten a waiver. Because you're supposed to live here 2 years in the same household with the same family members. They were here, 14 months, something like that. And they placed her with them. And they're the ones who adopted her. But, you know, we met the people in the hospital, and we got along well with them. They told us we would become great friends. That's until DCYF stuck their noses into it. I know this for a fact because I took foster care classes, and foster people, the people that are taking the classes, are told, don't get too friendly with the families. They're angry. Well, why wouldn't they be angry?
Right.
You know what I mean? And they don't want you to become friends. I've known other foster parents who have become good friends with the families.
Have you ever done any foster care?
No, they wouldn't give me a license. They said I was uncooperative.
Okay.
So, but I've known other foster parents who've gotten friendly with the families, and the kids were taken from them.
All right. So, at this point, you've not seen your grandchildren, period.
No.
They're taken away from you.
Yep.
And where are you at what stage are you in your fight to get them back? Where are you with this?
Where am I with this? I've gotten together with many people over the internet. My blog has gone worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
I have people contacting me all the time from everywhere asking me what to do. I've picketed DCYF. That went against me. You know, well, what am I supposed to do? Sit there and die? Do nothing? I've filed motions. I've filed petitions. I've filed appeals. Every single one denied.
On what grounds?
No standing. I have no standing.
What does that mean? You're a grandparent.
They make up their own rules.
Okay.
I guess that's what it means, because I do have standing.
What are some of the other cases that you're running? You're obviously involved with this. What's going on? What's going on in the state that you've seen, and you say other people are contacting you? What are they saying from New Hampshire?
Oh, they're contacting me, telling me the same thing. They didn't get any services. Their kids were taken.
Any services from?
DCYF. There's no services before a child is taken. As far as they're considered, every child is in imminent danger. They take them.
Okay. What are some of the services they're supposed to provide?
Well, like when people don't have the money or they can't afford their own apartment, they're supposed to try to help them, to show them where to go, to get the help, to get the apartment, to get jobs. They should be doing services with the family to show them what they're doing wrong, if in fact they are doing anything wrong.
Right.
But there aren't any services.
Instead, their intervention is, we're going to
just take the child and run.
And you have no way of fighting them.
No, but I put their name on the map, which I'm happy for. Mm-hmm. When I first got on the internet, well, I didn't even know how to use the computer when they took my granddaughter. I finally got on the internet and I started getting into different groups. AFRA was the first one I joined. And I went into all these different websites where it had statistics about the different states, DCYF, and different things about their states. New Hampshire was never there. It was never there. So I started writing all these websites, and I asked them, why isn't New Hampshire on your website? You know, that they're just as bad as the rest, if not worse. Why aren't we there? They're everywhere now. Everywhere. So I'm glad that happened. I've been spreading the news, and I've been trying to get different bills passed within the House.
Like?
CACR 26.
And what is that?
Okay, that bill gives the Supreme Court the power to say anything goes in the courts, and it shouldn't be that way. No. Criminal court should be the same as family court. Okay?
Now CACR, that's a constitutional amendment.
Yes,
correct?
For 73A.
73A. Now, 73A has to deal with the... my understanding with 73A is that in 1978,
Yes.
the legislature gave the courts all rulemaking ability, taking it from the legislature and giving it
Right.
to the courts completely.
Right. But what I understood was that last sentence giving them the power was added in after the legislature voted on it.
Yeah. From what I understand, that was never on the ballot.
Right.
Which said that once the courts have the rulemaking ability, such rules shall become
Right.
law.
Right.
So a rule that the court may make,
Right.
such as Rule 1.2,
Right.
waiver of rules. If you want to bring evidence and they want to waive that rule in good standing,
That's right.
you can spend $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 on evidence, and if the court deems for good reason, whatever
So
that means.
that bill must pass.
Right.
It has to pass.
CACR 26.
Yes, this never would have happened. Never would have happened. In criminal court, they're treated so much better than parents. Parents are treated worse than criminals. Criminal court, you can come up with, a convicted criminal can come up with evidence proving his innocence years and years later, and they're exonerated and set free. A parent has 30 days to file a de novo appeal. Now, even if my lawyers had filed that de novo appeal, they still didn't have the evidence proving their innocence because it was hidden by the hospital and the healthcare center.
Why would they do such a thing?
My daughters are very outspoken, and my daughter will tell it like it is. If you have a hair sticking up off your head, she's going to tell you. And a lot of people don't like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you feel like she bucked the system, so the system said, well, we're going
Right.
to take care of you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I know, sitting on the redress of grievances, that there are many cases, similar, different. Children are being taken away. And courts aren't listening to the evidence.
Nope.
They're waiving rules. In some cases, they're discriminating in the process of appeals.
Right.
Because of familiar status, and on and on and on. What do you think the remedy here is? CACR 26, which repeals the courts making rules without oversight
Right.
of the legislature, putting it back in the people's hands, so to speak. What else? What are some of the other things that
We need open courts.
open courts?
Grafton and Rockingham supposedly have open courts.
And
It
what
was
will
a
that
pilot
do?
project. It will make them accountable. Do you think they're going to sit there and lie to the judge when there's, and contradict themselves when other people are there watching their every move? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other states have opened the courts, and there's a lot less kids in foster care now.
Right. So overall, what are your thoughts about the foster care in New Hampshire? Does it need to be rehauled or refixed? What? Are you familiar with it?
The whole system needs reform,
You say
period.
the
The
whole
whole system needs reform. The DCYF is getting away with too much. The judges are biased. They're on the side of DCYF. My daughter found out, my youngest daughter found out, that the DCYF worker had given the wrong name as her daughter's father to the court. So when she found out, my daughter filed an affidavit with the court, and I brought it down there, that said the father's name, the real father. Judge Patton granted the adoption of my granddaughter 4 days later and said he never received the affidavit. Yet the affidavit was in an objection brief from Rebecca Woodward from the Attorney General's office, but he never received it. The father tried getting a paternity test twice and challenging the adoption, and he was denied both times. He was told he had no standing. My grandson, his father, his name is on his birth certificate. His father, they had his address, they had everything. His phone number, everything. He's from Honduras. He was deported to Honduras after he was born. DCYF notified the newspapers in Mexico for a father in Honduras, okay? I have all this proof. I have all of it. I'm not telling you anything that I can't prove.
Right.
When we told, what happened was they were going to terminate his rights, and my daughter got the paperwork in the mail from the sheriff. We went to the caseworker and we told her, the man they have down is 11 years younger than my grandson's father. She said, that's okay, no big deal. Doesn't matter. I said, yeah, it does matter. That's not his father. They terminated his rights anyway. So by rights, neither of my grandchildren's father's rights have been terminated. They were both illegally adopted. If my grandson was adopted, I have no idea because I couldn't believe anything DCYF told me anyway.
Do you know where your grandchildren are?
I know where my granddaughter is, and I've been accused of going over there and never have. And I asked them, in fact, in court, when I tried to intervene.
Why aren't they allowing you to see your grandchild?
What? Because DCYF made us look so bad to the foster family, and they must have told them that if you let them near her, you're going to lose her.
Can you reverse an illegal adoption?
Yes, you can.
How?
It depends on if there was fraud involved, and there was plenty in both cases.
And you can prove that there's fraud involved?
Yes. I've filed the appeals with the Supreme Court. Are they going to hear it? No, I've done it before. No, they don't hear it. They deny everyone. They've denied everyone.
Based on what?
They just say, they come back with objections from the Attorney General's office saying that the appeal is no good, that I have no standing. They just make up whatever they want to make up. But when when my youngest daughter went for her termination of parental rights hearing, we picked the lawyer this time. It was Joseph Caulfield. He was awesome. And I went down to his office, and I worked for about 60 hours with him, and I went through every single paper in my daughter's file. And I pulled out tons and tons of evidence proving she was innocent. And he kept telling me, he says, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're not going to win. I said, what do you mean I'm not going to win? Is this set in stone? And you just said he's awesome. Yeah, but this is what he told me. Okay, all right. And I said, is it set in stone that she's going to lose? She said, no, she's going to lose. And so he tried to get my daughter to do mediation. She said, no, if there's a chance I can win, I'm going to take it. He says, there is no chance you're going to win. So I have it in paperwork. I have the note from him saying, no, she's going to lose. Why? Because there's bias against families in New Hampshire, and everyone loses. One of the caseworker that was advocating for us to take my grandson, we went and met her down at the office one day. I'm sure she was taped. She was gone shortly after. I asked her, I said, how can DCYF do the things that they're doing? She said, because our government gave them the power to do whatever they want. Our government or the courts? Our government. Our government. Then she told me that kids that are taken from Nashua are never returned. Then she told me any parent that goes for a TPR, which is terminating parental rights, they all lose. And the Supreme Court never reverses a termination of parental rights. That's what, New Hampshire, that's what she told me soon after she was gone. What do you mean she was gone? She doesn't work there anymore. And because somebody found out she told you this? I'm sure we were being taped. That's how they do things down there. They tape everything, even without your knowledge. What do you want the viewers to know? What do I want the viewers to know? Watch every single thing you do with your kids, because no matter what you do, there's people in other states and stuff, they lost the kids because they fed them chocolate. One little boy was named, the parents stupidly named him Adolf Hitler. That was really stupid. They took him. There was no abuse and neglect, but they took him because of his name. So you're saying parental rights are being assaulted on every front? Yes, on every front. Where can they get in touch with you? Where can the viewers get in touch with you to get more information? Maybe there are other people that are going through some similar abuses. How can they get in touch with you? What do you recommend to them? They can get in touch with me at returnourkids@gmail.com. What I recommend to them is fight. You have to all fight and unite, period. And how do you fight? You fight back with any evidence that you have. You fight back by filing motions, petitions. You go to the Redress Grievance Committee, number one, because they're a big help. They are. You know, they're the only ones that listen to us. Nobody else will. You have to fight and unite. Everyone has to band together. There's more of them than there are. There's more of us than there are of them.
And that's sad to say that there are more of you than
That's
there are.
right.
I know in redress we have at least 31 cases this year.
And you have plenty more because people keep contacting me.
It come to find out they're coming out in droves. So, again, so they can reach you at that. Is there another website that?
Unhappy Grammy, Grandparents Blogspot.
Okay, and you're on Twitter?
Twitter, I'm on Twitter as Unhappy Grammy.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook.
As .Knightley or .Knight?
They're not going to be able to get me through there. It's Dorothy Claire Knightley because I was having a problem with people that it was, no, I mean the privacy thing and DCYF. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. All right, and so you fully endorse CACR 26?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And I endorse the Redress Committee.
Right.
And I endorse our legislature. They're all awesome. And I can't wait for a new governor, one that will help us this time.
Okay.
There was one thing I wanted to add, though, just one thing. When my youngest daughter, when she went for the hearing for her rights to be terminated, we clearly won. We won. It was totally awesome. We had everything. When we got the decision back in the mail, Judge Raymond Cloutier, the one who retired and he's fighting the state now for more pension money, he wrote the opposite of all the testimony and the proof in the decision, the opposite of everything. And when we filed the appeal with the Supreme Court, they said he made no errors. So tell me they read that transcript. There's no way. Nobody is reading anything.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us here on Speak Up, New Hampshire. If you want to get in touch with Dot, you know how. And the whole purpose of this show is to let people here in New Hampshire, here in Nashua, know we're listening and we're going to get your message out. The only requirement when you come on this show is that you have your decks lined up, you have affidavits, and the information you have is provable. Until next week, thank you very much. Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedom, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up. To stand up and fight back.